Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
I was born in India, in a village, on the 1st of July, 1918. In August 1927, I reached Durban, South Africa.
This is the Madrasa Arcade in Durban, South Africa.
The curious narrow alleyways of the Madrasa Arcade are familiar to Yaqub Mehtar. Over 50 years ago, he and his young friend Ahmed would wander through the marketplace on their way to the tailor shop of Ahmed's father, Hussein Deedat.
And this is the shop of Mr. Deedat Senior.
9-year-old Ahmed Deedat moved to Durban in 1927 to join his father Hussein, who had settled there a few years earlier. Ahmed's voyage to South Africa had been long and difficult. In fact, he almost never made it to the streets of Durban. Much of the money went to pay for the rent of their small apartment in Ismail Building, next to one of the oldest mosques in Durban. One of Ahmed's neighbors in the building, Ahmed Suleiman Beylim, would eventually become one of his lifelong supporters.
This is the building, and on the right you see this apartment here. Ahmed Deedat and his family stayed, and I used to be his neighbor. Next one, which is in apartment number 2.
So you are very close.
So we're very close. In fact, nice people, but their family was very poor people.
Ahmed enrolled at the Anjuman school, where he was in Standard 4. It was the first time he had seen the letters ABC and heard the words yes and no. In 6 months' time, however, he had learned English and became the top of his class. He was promoted to the next standard, where he also excelled academically. Every day he walked to school and back home because his father couldn't afford the bus fare of 2 pennies. He later moved on to Sastry College, a respectable school built by an Indian immigrant to South Africa. Ahmed showed up for the first day of his new school in his clean new uniform, ready to hit the books. But this is where Ahmed Deedat's education came to an abrupt end. He must have spent only a few hours walking these corridors because after only 3 days at college, his father pulled him out. Financial considerations put an abrupt end to him furthering his education. His mission was outside Durban in the rolling hills of rural South Africa. Ahmed took a job in a country store called the O.N. Mohammed shop. Just across the way was the enormous Adams Mission Complex, an institute where young missionaries learned how to convert others to Christianity.
These missionaries, they were making life miserable for us from this college. They were getting training there as to how to deal with the Muslims. And as they came to do their shopping here, they asked us questions. Criticism, actually. He says, Muhammad has so many wives. I knew nothing about that. He says, Muhammad spread his religion at the point of the sword. I knew nothing about that. He says, he copied his book from the Jews and the Christians. I knew nothing about that. So what was I as a Muslim to do? I had a natural urge for reading. And one Sunday morning, going into my boss's warehouse, go down, I was rummaging through a pile of old newspapers, looking for some better reading material than newspapers to read. And as I was looking for such a material, I came across a worm-eaten book. This book, we have renewed the cover, but a worm-eaten book. And when I picked it up, I started to sneeze because it was all full of mildew. And I read the title of the book. It said, Izharul Haq. Spelled out in Latin script, I-Z-H-A-R-U-L-H-A-K-K. Izharul Haq. Now to me that sounded Arabic. Izharul Haq. It sounds like Arabic. So I didn't know what it meant. I see here at the bottom it says The Truth Revealed. This was a very old publication, printed in 1915 in India. 2 years older than myself. I was born in 18, this is 3 years older than myself. Now this book actually changed my life.
Ahmad Deedat now had his armor. His shield would be his extensive knowledge of the Bible and Quran, and his sword would be his frank, piercing style of delivery. In 1940, he took to the stage and began giving lectures to small audiences, the first of which was Muhammad, the Messenger of Peace.
I made appointments with them to go to their homes on Sundays, after church, their church, and talking to them, and I talked myself into talking until I came to Durban, reside in Durban. I found a job in Durban. And in Durban, around the 50s, an opening took place. This is also Allah's Musabbib al-Asbab. We had a very charismatic speaker coming from overseas. And this speaker, very unusual, for a Sunday morning, he used to get 300 people every Sunday morning. And the crowd was increasing continuously. And I used to attend this talk of his, very fascinating. At the end of the talk, question and answers, and when everything was over, after a few months, a revert to Islam, an Englishman who had become Muslim, by the name of Mr. Fairfax. This Mr. Fairfax, he suggested this, look, any of you, if you are interested, I am prepared to teach you people comparative religion. But he called it Bible class. He said, I will teach you the Bible, how to use the Bible in propagating Islam. So he said, very good. So out of this 200 to 300 audience every Sunday morning that this other gentleman drew, about 15 to 20 opted to remain for a second injection. And this Mr. Fairfax began teaching us that, look, in the book of Daniel, there are certain prophecies and how to use those prophecies. In the book of Deuteronomy, in the Bible, there are certain prophecies regarding the coming of our Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and how we can exploit them, how we can expound them. So this thing carried on for a few more weeks or a couple of months, and then Mr. Fairfax was absent. And I could see the disappointment on the faces of these young people. We were all young then, 15 to 20 of us. We're looking at each other's faces, disappointed, and we break up. The following Sunday again, we look at each other's faces. Where is Mr. Fairfax? No news. And we break up. The third Sunday, I suggested to them, to those people who were enthusiastic about having a second inning, I said, look, if you like, I can carry on where Mr. Fairfax left off, because I had the knowledge that I was sitting in to give this person my moral support. Myself and my secretary, who has just passed away, Mr. G.H. Vanker. Now, we were both knowledgeable as far as the Bible was concerned, but we would give them our moral support, so we would sit there and with the rest. Now I said, look, if you like, I will carry on from where Mr. Fairfax left off, and if you get bored, tired, fed up, just yawn, and there will be notice enough for me to stop. And for 3 years, I continued talking to them, and I discovered now that that was my best way of learning, because there is no better way to learn than to teach. As our Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, "Ballighu anni walau ayah." Deliver the message regarding me, even if it is one verse. That's a secret. If you have one verse, and if you share, and you share, and you share, then Allah fills you up with more. I didn't know that then, but I can now realize what was happening. Teaching them. Then I had some visitors to come along. There were some visitors coming from Johannesburg, and they stayed in for my class.